Shouting, cheering, and loud noises will not be tolerated, and violators may be removed for disrupting the meeting. Goodyear City Council meetings stream live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and online at goodyearaz.gov. Follow the city's social media pages so you don't miss out on all that's happening in Goodyear. Thank you for coming to this meeting and being an active part of your city. And remember, it's a great time to be in Goodyear.
I'd like to call a regular meeting to order for May 22nd, 2023. Everybody here? City Clerk?
Yes, all members are present.
Thank you. With that, would you please join Councilmember Campbell in the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads with me. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, your wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us engage in a meaningful discussion, allowing us to grow closer as a group and to nurture the bonds of the community. We thank you for the many blessings that you have bestowed upon our city. We pray, Lord, for a hedge of protection around our first responders and for our military and their families. Keep them safe from harm and strife. We ask these things in thy most holy name. Amen.
Thank you. All right. Now is the time for citizens who would like to address the City Council on any non-agenda items within the jurisdiction of the City of Goodyear. Any speaker cards?
Yes, Mayor. Vic Knight.
Before you start, the council will listen to comments and may take one of the following actions: respond to criticism, request that staff investigate and report on the matter, request the matter be scheduled on a future agenda items. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. The red light will come on and let you know when there's 20 seconds left. Before you begin to speak, identify yourself clearly, stating for the record your name and if you're a Goodyear resident. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. My name is Vic Knight. I live at 3738 164th Avenue in Pebble Creek. At the very end of the Planning and Zoning meeting on May 10th, one commission member made a comment about Pebble Creek in reference to the Circle K permit delays and no public comments made during the P&Z April 12th meeting. He said, "Pebble Creek, where were you?" And then there was a laughter among the people there. Well, I can say we're not laughing about it in Pebble Creek. The issue is the notification process used. There were no formal citizen review meeting. The action report states that a notice was mailed to all property owners within 500 feet of the property. The closest residence is 550 feet away. That means no one in Pebble Creek received a notice. Further, no notice was received by Pebble Creek HOA or RCI. Yes, a sign was posted on a subject property on Indian School. The sign gave the title of the application. Legal notice was published in the Arizona Republic. I question who reads the legal notices these days. Most people don't. No one that I spoke to in Pebble Creek knew about the details of the requested use permit before April 12th. The zoning administrator could have looked at other factors to expand the notice potentially affected citizens according to Goodyear Ordinance 1-3-8. It's mind-boggling that residents living a little further, 500 feet, more than 500 feet, were not sent notice. He had the authority to expand the noticed area. The notice may meet the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. Circle K convenience store with gas station sounds like a normal Circle K to me, but it is not. Nothing indicates that there will be diesel pumps, semi-truck parking on nearly half the property in the south portion, closest to our multi-purpose sports facility. In no way does the title inform anyone of the scope of the application. A lot of concern and frustration could have been avoided If the affected residents had received personal notice, then we would have been at the April 12th P&Z meeting. Did someone here drop the ball on this? I don't know. But we do want to voice our concerns. We were just never invited to the party. Thank you for listening to us. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Constance Angus.
Constance? Same thing, Constance, for the record. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Constance Angus, and I'm a Goodyear resident as well. And I want to thank each and every one of you council members for actually representing us. I know it's not an easy job, and I'm grateful that you took it on and are responsible. I'm here today because my husband and I will not be here on the 26th of June for the council meeting regarding Circle K, and I felt a need to come and express how I feel. Our petition that went around Pebble Creek reads as such: petition survey, summary, and background. Circle K convenience store and gas pump, case number 21-300-00011. The Circle K proposal for the southeast end of the parcel behind the convenience store is a 24-hour operation with 4 diesel pumps and 7 semi-truck parking spaces with designated truck ingress and/or egress lane adjacent to the north Pebble Creek boundary wall. The truck area abuts the 6-foot wall by the new pickleball courts, Ramada, restrooms, open sports area, and golf cart path. We're asking the action be to deny the use permit for Circle K 24-hour diesel pumps, semi-truck parking. This use is materially detrimental to the persons residing in the neighborhood and to the public welfare. It will cause excessive noise, odors, lights, and will be detrimental to the health of the people exercising and using those sports facilities in this area of Pebble Creek. When it became known that the Circle K 24-hour diesel refueling station was going to be located next to the Pebble Creek Sports Complex, this petition was started on a grassroots level, person by person, resident by resident. Almost no one signing this petition was aware of what was going to take place with the diesel refueling station and its location to our sports complex. To date, in exactly 3 short weeks since the petition began to be circulated, we have over 1,029 signatures from our community. Considering the fact that over 40% of our residents are snowbirds and many others are gone on vacation and not here to sign this petition, we have been greatly encouraged by those so willing to express their concern by signing the petition. On my street alone, over half the residents have left for the season and were unaware of what was happening. With approximately just under 300 people having attended the meeting with Circle K on May 17th, it is very clear that the residents of Pebble Creek are not in agreement with this 24-hour diesel refueling station so close to our sports complex and our homes. You, as a Goodyear City Council, now hold in your hands the ability to stop this from happening. The people have been demonstrating their opinion, and I pray that you are listening with open minds. Please deny this use permit. The 24-hour refueling station will harm the health, safety, and welfare of Pebble Creek community. Thank you.
Did you want to leave that with anybody? Did you say you had?
This was just, we turned in 1,029 signatures, and you should have those.
Oh, do we have those? Was it? Okay, we'll have to track them down. All right. First of all, Bill, do you have a question?
Is that it for the speakers?
No, this,
I'll wait for one more and then,
okay.
then I've got a generic.
Okay, but they were turned in somewhere here.
All right, we'll
Thank you.
track it.
John Angus.
Good
Go ahead,
evening,
John.
City
for the
Council.
record. Go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
my name is John Angus, and I am a resident of Goodyear. Good evening to all of you council members. First, I would like to reinforce my wife's comment on each of you for you truly representing the concerns of the residents of Goodyear. I am here tonight to adamantly oppose the use permit for a convenience store and gas station by Circle K. It is more than that. It is a diesel refueling station, also known as a truck stop. I am opposing the use permit based on major health issues. The use permit states it will not materially be detrimental to persons residing or working in a facility adjacent to the property, to the neighborhood, or the public welfare. If that is true, why does the Environmental Protection Agency say, and I quote, "Diesel exhaust can lead to serious health issues like asthma and respiratory illness, and can worsen existing heart and lung diseases, especially in children and elderly." The following list identifies chemicals commonly associated with exhaust from diesel engines: carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, nitric oxide, sulfur dioxide, and that is the short list. There's 20 other chemicals from diesel fuels. To say diesel fuels are not harmful to people is to close a blind eye to reality. This is water. This is just what's in the air. It does not include what diesel is doing to our water and ground. The World Health Organization classifies diesel exhaust as carcinogenic to humans, even at low concentrations and through short-term exposures. So back to the EPA and the diesel fuels. Within approximately 250 feet of the diesel refueling station, we have several hundred residents a day playing pickleball or golf. Now we are being exposed to breathing a diesel exhaust and pretending it is okay. Common sense is shouting at us, this is a very bad idea. Many of us already have heart and lung issues. If there was a playground 250 feet from the diesel refueling station, would you let your children play there on a routine basis? If you approve this use permit, that is exactly what you are doing to hundreds of elderly Goodyear citizens 7 days a week. Let's be clear, it's not a convenience store. It is a diesel refueling station, AKA truck stop. Please vote to deny this permit because it would be materially detrimental to our health, safety, and welfare. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Councilmember Stipp, do you have a question?
I do have a question that we can get at the end of the week in the manager's report. The question was raised about the zoning administrator having the ability to extend the range of the notification. It has always been our understanding that that is not possible, so can we get clarification on that, please? Thank you.
You good? Thank you all for coming up. With that, will the city clerk please read consent agenda items 1 through 10 by title only?
Number 1, approve the minutes. Number 2, adopt the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System Fiscal Year 2024 Pension Funding Policy. Number 3, approve the joint agency agreement with Maricopa Association of Governments for the Vineyard and 143rd Avenue Safety Project. Number 4, adopt resolution number 2023-2306, ordering, calling, and providing notice of a special election for November 7, 2023, referring to the voters of the City of Goodyear questions of selling and issuing bonds payable from secondary ad valorem property taxes, designating the manner of election, designating the dates that voter registration closes, designating provisions for the filing of arguments for and against the bonds, authorizing the city manager or designee to enter into all agreements to effectuate election services, and ordering the city clerk to publish notice of this call of election. Number 5, adopt resolution number 2023-2316, approving and authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental agreement between Maricopa County and the City of Goodyear for coordination of roadway standards related to private developments and providing direction and authorization. Number 6, adopt resolution number 2023-2310, designating the chief fiscal officer for officially submitting the fiscal year 2024 expenditure limitation report to the Arizona Auditor General. Number 7, adopt resolution number 2023-2314, authorizing and directing that interests in certain real property be acquired by the City of Goodyear by exercise of eminent domain as a matter of public necessity and authorizing use of eminent domain. Number 8, adopt resolution number 2023-2315, authorizing and directing that fee simple and easement interests in certain real property be acquired by the City of Goodyear by dedication, donation, purchase, or the exercise of the power of eminent domain as a matter of public necessity and providing authorization. Number 9, approve a budget increase of $2.37 million for a capital improvement program project Number 42037 Yuma Road, Canyon Trails to Saraval and related budget amendments. Number 10, approve the final plat for Arroyo Ranch.
Thank you, Darcy. That was a mouthful getting through all of those, you know? Thank you. Does anyone on the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
Mayor, I have a question on one, please.
Go ahead, which one?
Number 7.
Number 7? What do we have here in the audience for that one?
Do we have staff here for number 7? The
Real estate coordinator?
domain on historic Goodyear water. Number 7.
Sarah, can you come up?
There you go.
It's just a real quick question. It's not going to take the whole army.
Good evening, I'm Kimberly Romero, and I'm the real estate coordinator.
All right, my question, Kimberly, is that 135 out of 136 homeowners have agreed to let us do the water line, and there's one homeowner that doesn't want us to do it.
That is correct.
So if we do eminent domain, what are we doing? Are we just taking control of the water lines in front of his house in the street, or what are we doing?
Correct. What we're doing is we are obtaining a TCE, which is a temporary construction easement, which allows the city to go on and/or its construction crew to go on to be able to install that line.
Could they go
And
on
then
that
it's just-
property?
Mhm.
Can they
And it's
now
just-
go on the property legally if we do the eminent domain?
Correct.
And he
Correct.
can't sue us?
No, he
Okay,
cannot sue
good.
us.
That's my question. Thank you.
Okay.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Just to clarify, Councilmember Campbell, technically it is a legal action to obtain the right to enter onto his land. So eminent domain is a legal action filed in court to get court approval to enter onto his land to construct the water line. We think it's only going to take 1 day to put the water line in, but we would get a court authority to go in and do that because we
Great,
can't
okay.
get the.
So then our workers will be safe and there's not
Correct.
an issue?
Correct.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks.
much.
Thank you there, Councilmember Campbell. Council enter a motion and a second to approve. See, we got a motion, let's see, a motion and a second on the board. Go ahead and open up. I guess no more comments. Go ahead and open up voting. Passes 7-0. Thank you. We have 2 public hearings on the agenda tonight. First one is use permit for Circle K was continued from April 24th and is being continued out to June 26th on the regular meeting, so it won't be discussed here. The last public hearing is to consider a use permit for a storage facility for U-Haul moving and storage. Go ahead and open the public hearing. Go ahead and introduce yourself there, Steve.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Steve Creccia, Planning Manager. I do have a presentation for you tonight for a U-Haul moving and storage facility. The property is located right here. It's about 4.5 acres, Van Buren, 137th. Here's that vacant piece right here, about 4.5 acres. Surrounding it pretty much to the, kind of wrapping around here, west, around to the north, around to the east, existing and planned non-residential development. We have retail here, planned retail, light industrial up here, flex industrial, wrapping around to another rental facility here. To the south, we have Van Buren Street. Here we have City of Avondale jurisdiction right here, and we have a mix of retail and rental facilities. Here at the southwest corner, we also have another rental community. I'd like to point out the nearest single-family residential owner-occupied is about 430 feet to the south, right about here. And a little history of the property, 2002 was zoned from single-family to C2, so it does have a commercial zoning. 2007, there was a site plan approved for a retail center, but that has since expired since 2007. 2021, recently, we had a minor land division. We created 2 lots, and the proposal tonight is on Lot 2, so U-Haul will be going in on the Lot 2. And given that the property is Zone C2, there's a requirement for a special use permit for storage facilities in that zoning district. And so tonight, the proposal is a storage facility along with retail sales, truck trailer rental. We have a 4-story building right here, just north of Van Buren. This will be the main unit for customers to have their storage units here, a little over 1,000 units. Retail operations over here, their office. Should note everything faces north on this building, so all the customer interactions, parking here, the queuing for truck rentals, all of that occurs out of street view, so all of that occurs behind the building. Here in the back is another use for U-Haul, their portable storage boxes. Those will come in here, get delivered, stored, taken back out to customers' residences. We have one access point off of 137th. That'll be full access. An applicant is also working with the city of Avondale, since they have jurisdiction over Van Buren here, on this access point here. And again, this is kind of the circulation pattern around, and this section here is where the trucks will be queued, the trailers and trucks will be queued for as customers come to pick them up. So back here, again, all this will be screened from Van Buren 137th by either walls or planned buildings. And this is the architecture that's proposed, 4-story building. This is the frontage facing Van Buren, so they added a mix of glass, faux windows, a mix of materials, a varied roof line. And this is where the customer interactions will occur. So this is kind of the north side facing internal to the side. So this is where all the customers will interact, enter into the facility, and then enter into their individual storage units. And this is for the U-Box building in the back, where the trucks will come in, drop off, they'll get stored and used as customer demand requires. And so we did have a neighborhood meeting that was held on April 25th. We did mail out postcards to all those folks within 500 feet. No one attended the meeting, and staff has not received any opposition to this request from that notice. Public hearing, notice for the public hearing was posted on the property, legal ad, as well as another postcard mailing to surrounding residents. To date, staff has not received any opposition or public inquiry on this request. So staff's findings, we find it not detrimental to neighborhood or general public. We find it will be compatible with the existing permitted uses in the area, especially since most of them are non-residential. They're commercial, they're industrial, like a flex industrial. So we find that this use will be perfectly consistent with those uses. We find it will be consistent with our zoning ordinance criteria for an SUP, and so we are recommending approval, staff and both the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff, recommending approval subject to those stipulations in the staff report. With that, Mayor and Council, that concludes my presentation. Available for questions. The applicant representing U-Haul is also available if there are any questions.
Would the applicant like to speak at this time, or want to wait to see if there's any questions? You good? Okay. Any speaker cards?
No, Mayor.
All right. Would anybody in the audience like to speak? With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the special use permit for the storage facility with stipulations? I got a motion and a second. Go ahead and speak. Open up to speak. Anybody? What do I have here? Councilmember Hampton's up first.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you for bringing this to us. I just had a couple questions. If I reading the staff notes, all the U boxes will be inside a building. There's not the only thing we should see from the outside is really just U-Haul trucks. Is that correct?
Mayor, council members, yes, all the U-Boxes will be stored in this building here. This area here is the proposed area for the trailer and truck queuing, so they'll all be stored here.
Okay. And then just another, I don't know if we need to do this. I'm just curious if there is a policy on this or not. I know how group homes can't be within a certain distance of each other. Is there anything in our city code or anything that, where storage units have to be a certain distance away from each other?
Mayor and council members, there's no separation in the zoning ordinance for storage unit to storage unit? Yeah, no, sir, no such separation.
All right. I don't know if there needs to be. I was just curious. I'm just thinking of the one that we approved that's off of Litchfield and Van Buren that we redid recently, and I think there's one just the other side, other direction too. But I was just curious if there was any distances in the codes. But no, I support this, but I just had those questions. So thank you.
Councilmember Stipp? Nope, I'm done. You're done?
Yep, I'm good.
All right, Councilmember Campbell?
I have your map. Is this the 99-cent store or is this Enterprise? It's probably the 99-cent store, that area, right? And so it's further down where that big vacant lot is.
Yes, ma'am, this is the
Perfect.
car rental spot here. So.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh, this was the car rental spot here, yes.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry, where?
this one.
Oh, right there, I'm a block. Okay, thank you. That's what I thought. I just wanted to be sure. Thank you very much.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, can you open up for voting? Motion carries 7-0. I'd like to remind council, this is our first business, to remind council to wait for the motion in a second before discussion. We have 4 business items. I understand that there will be one presentation for the next 3 items with individual action occur on each item. So with that, first item to consider adopting the budget for 2024 and set a public hearing. Please go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Ryan Biddle, the Finance Manager of Budget and Research at the City of Goodyear, and I'm here to present our fiscal year 2024 tentative budget. This is an overview of our presentation, which I don't anticipate taking very long, at least not as long as my previous presentations. Just to recap and remind everyone how we got to where we are tonight. The budget process started back in calendar year 2022 with a significant amount of collaboration behind the scenes between departments, the city manager's office, and the budget team discussing available resources and needs for the upcoming fiscal year. Then in February at our council retreat, we presented a 5-year general fund forecast, creating a foundation off of which our fiscal year 2024 budget was built. We met again in April during an extended work session where we had an in-depth discussion on the city manager's recommended budget. The recommended budget presentation included conversations around citywide sources and uses, as well as proposed supplemental additions and CIP projects. All those steps bringing us to where we are tonight with our tentative budget presentation. The focus of tonight's presentation will primarily be on the first bullet point, which you see in front of you, and that is to discuss the changes from our last meeting at our recommended city manager's budget presentation until now. After that, we'll review our sources, resources and expenditures, our typical where does the money come from, where does the money go, and then we'll talk about adoption and next steps. I will pause for questions after I get through the details of the changes between the recommended budget and right now, but if anybody has any questions in the meantime, please feel free to stop me. So our tentative budget is coming in at $806.9 million. You can see that on the bottom right of your screen. And that is $225 million higher than our city manager's recommended budget, which you can see on the top right of your screen. And at first glance, that change appears to be fairly significant. However, I do want to emphasize that the majority of these changes are routine adjustments made every year at this time between the city manager's recommended budget and the tentative budget presentation. This $225 million can be broken down into just over a dozen changes, which you see on the screen in front of you, that I will walk through with you right now. So numbers 1 and 2 have to do with carryovers, both CIP and non-CIP. These were not part of the city manager's recommended budget, nor should they have been. That's because at that point in time, those were shown as fully expended in fiscal year 2023, the current fiscal year. So this change represents expenditures basically jumping from 23 into 24. To be clear, carryovers do not represent any changes to the amounts that have already been funded, only the timing of when we expect the expenditures to occur is changing. The details behind these carryovers were shared with council in your tentative budget book delivered to you last week and can be found in pages 8, 9, and 10 of that book if you happen to have those books in front of you. We also have an additional slide on each of these two amounts immediately after this one where we break out the carryovers in a little bit more detail. Number 3 relates to fund balances and updated estimates. As the city continues to operate throughout the budget season, we continue to update our current year estimates as it makes sense to do so. This little over $1 million decrease in available resources come from the addition of a street sweeping machine that was brought up in our city manager's recommended budget, but had not yet made its way into our estimates, as well as a PD Art CIP project. Number 4 on this list is a property tax correction. That is from Maricopa County. They sent us corrected property tax information, so it is their error, not the city's error. And it results in about a $200,000 increase into our resources. It's actually a reduction to the general fund, the primary piece of that, and an increase to the secondary piece. So the net of what you're seeing is a $192,000 increase to resources. Number 5, we're categorizing as base budget adjustments, and these represent additional costs to maintain the same level of service. And included in those are jail rate increases for 24, additional dollars for ambulance overtime, money for costs incurred to purchase an existing vehicle, an updated cost for a financial audit that we got an RFP on. Numbers 6 through 8, I'm going to lump together. Those are 3 supplementals. Those came out of discussions from our city manager's recommended budget presentation in April. We added 1 FTE for an assistant to the council members and 1 FTE for a government relations position. In all, now we have 2 assistants to the council on staff after this, and we will also have 2 government relations positions as well. The $50,000 allows for site analysis that will tell us what the next steps are that make the most sense to take down at Fire Station 187 and our firefighter staff down in Mobile. Number 9 has to do with the parking garage. This one looks a little weird because there's a different amount on resources and expenditures. So what we had previously, we had that $20 million budgeted in fiscal year 24. Since then, we've moved it up to fiscal year 23 and reduced it from $20 million to $12.5 million, which is what we're actually going to have to pay. So it's a reduction in expenditures in 24, but it's also a reduction in the beginning balance of what we have for 24 on the resources side. Number 10 has to do with CFDs, our community facilities districts. In CFDs, residents have the ability to pay off their special assessments all at once in full if they so choose to. So this adjustment is just revising down our estimates based on what we expect to actually occur in various districts. Number 11 is relating to an ambulance. So based on additional information we got and lead times that we're seeing, we are going to have an ambulance that's going to arrive in next fiscal year, so we wanted to make sure we put dollars in the budget for that. Number 12, construction sales tax, long-term storage credit purchases. To be clear, this one actually was in the budget for the city manager's recommended budget. We're just changing how we're showing it in the budget. After speaking with accounting, it's more of an administrative adjustment. We had it previously budgeted as a transfer between the construction sales tax fund and the water fund. We're now showing it as revenue to the water fund and an expense to the construction sales tax fund. Number 13, policy reserve adjustment. Per our financial policies, 15% of ongoing revenues are set aside as a reserve. Because of some of these adjustments, we had to tweak our 15% slightly. And then last but not least, CIP reserve adjustment. Again, kind of a byproduct of several of all these ins and outs that you're seeing above here. We added about $6.5 million to our CIP reserve. And again, our CIP reserve is set aside to fund future years of our 5-year CIP. If we look at specifically CIP carryovers here, so the $221 million, that was bullet point number 1 on the previous slide. As a point of reference, last year we carried over $120.3 million, and we spoke in April about how our fiscal year 2024 CIP was more of a continuation of projects already in progress, and these are the numbers supporting those previous conversations. Camelback Road, that's going to reduce in scope a little bit later. Transportation projects, a lot of those came out of our budget that we put together in fiscal year 23. So those are continuation projects. Brine disposal, that has to do with partnership with APS and Palo Verde nuclear site. Fire Station 188 is still in progress. Gen 2 parking garage, we talked about already on the previous slide. Police Building Phase 2 is actually complete. We're just waiting to pay the final bill, so we have dollars there. And then we also had dollars for Australia Bridge for the design portion of that project. So if you take all those 6 projects from Australia Bridge on up, combine them with the transportation little bucket there, over 70% of the $221 million is broken down right there with those 6 projects plus transportation. So it seems like a lot, but really it's focused on just a few specific areas. Looking at vehicles, supply chain issues are still impacting the city, and in particular build times for those vehicles. So we have a couple large ones, a couple fire apparatus, a reserve brush truck, and some street sweepers, just to name a few that are still on hold that we're waiting to receive. And the last but not least, that leaves us with about 58 other projects that are less than $1 million apiece between them. But I do want to make it sure that everybody is aware as it relates to CIP carryovers that just because we're shifting dollars from the current year to the upcoming fiscal year, it doesn't mean we're stopping operations in the meantime. It doesn't mean we're telling departments to stop spending. Project managers still operate business as usual. Then when the August timeframe comes around, we do a true up of what we carried over versus what was actually spent in these last couple months of the year to make sure that all the approved budgets remain whole and unchanged. Looking at the non-CIP carryovers of $10.6 million, last year we carried over just under $12 million. Vehicles and equipment stick out again at the top. We talked about those significant delays in build times. We have a bunch of replacement vehicles, some PD patrol vehicles. Fleets kept us abreast on those, so a lot of those still need to be purchased, or they have been PO submitted, but we haven't paid for them or received them yet. On the grants line, $1.4 million. That's made up of some CDBG funds that are carrying over, microtransit funds that are carried over, and a handful of smaller PD grants. Staffing studies and plan updates, $1.1 million. A big portion of that relates to our general plan update and associated costs, which are still ongoing. Our COVID response funds, as mentioned in April, our COVID response funds are 100% allocated out. So these are the one-time dollars that remain, and we will continue to carry over those one-time dollars until they're fully spent. Technology and software, fairly small amounts here, broken up between several different requests. And then last but not least on here, miscellaneous projects. There's some dollars for Civic Square branding, light pole banners, and hardware for traffic cabinets. So how do all those changes impact our contingencies in the budget? Not a whole lot, actually. If you look, you can see the recommended budget column versus the tentative budget column, and there's not a lot of changes. The only few changes you'll see on there relate to the CIP reserve, which we talked about on the first slide on our reconciliation. And then there's less than $600,000 that changed in the contingencies for other funds amongst all the other funds in the city. So very little movement despite the dollars moving that you've talked about already. So that's probably a good spot to stop. That is the change from our city manager's budget to where we are today at our tentative budget. Does anybody have any questions on what was just discussed?
I've got one. The $10 million that's slowly being drained off of us from the audit, is that showing up at our reserve balance? Where did that impact? How's that showing up on here?
So that is the $10 million. We will be able to cover that. It will not impact ongoing operations, but that should be, I don't want to misspeak on this one because I know this was hot off the presses in the past couple of days. So I know it's accounted for, and I think Doug might be able to speak to it better than I can.
You got Doug stepping up here.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. The $10 million, it came after the budget presentation, so it is not included anywhere in the budget documents that you're seeing here. How it would be covered, though, is in that CIP reserve that Ryan showed of $21.6 million. Those are funds that are budgeted for or put aside for future years' spending, so that's going to allow us the time to move into it as we develop other budget years.
Okay, that's what I kind of guessed, but I wanted to hear it from you. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Can we go back to like slide 2? That one. And that's how I missed it when it was in the slide. I was looking at the numbers and not at the column on the left. I guess I'm going to piggyback on the mayor's question, so Doug, you may want to work your way back up and shock yourself before you sit down. The parking garage savings, the 12.5 to the 20 million, has been used in discussions for funding other stuff as well, or covering other budget transfers, other projects in the current fiscal year compared to next fiscal year, et cetera. So I guess I'm confused by it showing up here in the FY '24 budget if we've purchased it in the FY '23 budget. So can somebody kind of walk through how does this show up here when in fact we've already done it in FY '23?
So it's basically just a reconciling exercise between the two budgets and between the 2 years. So because when we presented last, the 20 million did sit in '24. And so on the slide, you're seeing the reduction of that moving away. That 20 million takes it away. That's 20 million that we get back in '24. Then on the resources side, we're saying we don't need that full 20 million. We just need 12.5 of that. So that resources factors into our beginning balance to start fiscal year '24. So what's happening in '23 translates into our beginning fiscal year 2024 balance. So we reduced that by $12.5 million, the actual amount. So that's the reconciliation piece of it. I don't know if that's answering the question as far as what those dollars represent. Does that help at all, or am I talking around the answer?
Let me rephrase it, because I think I may be answering my own question. We're not actually writing the check until FY '24, correct?
There is a chance that we might, actually. We've carried the funds over, so we have the ability to pay it out either in '23 or into '24, whenever those funds come due.
All right, I'm going to leave the dead horse alone. I know that it's covered. And through the resource expenditure process, I'll just go with that. So I'm going to call it good. My second, I'm just going to say, I guess it's going to be a statement, just kind of in general. I said it at the night we did the work session, that in 3.5 hours, we found a way to spend $750 million with very few questions. And here we sit tonight and I made one of the suggestions. I said, well, if we're going to do this, then we ought to do that. And those two positions ended up in this budget document with very little discussion among council other than an immediate reaction that night. And I think we as a council and we as a staff are not looking at this from a truly strategic perspective looking forward. And this is not a reflection of Ryan's work, because you and the entire finance staff, and I realize I'm looking at the top of the chain there, but I'm also looking at Jared and you and everybody else has done an amazing job year after year after year of producing a budget that is both conservative and meets the needs of our community. So I have zero complaint about that whatsoever. But I think as we go forward, as we start to get larger, this is easy to do when we were 25,000 people or we were 50,000 people. We're 100,000 people and we're continuing to grow quickly. We owe our community, we owe ourselves, and we owe our staff the forward look at really diving into these positions. I think intuitively we know perhaps that the need for a second assistant to the council is necessary. But I don't know how or why that's even necessary based on my own need. Now, I'm only one of 6. I also blurted out, Jenna needs more help. That's my intuitive response to Jenna needs more help. Where is the data that backs up this information? Where was the discussion for the 7 of us to have? And I'm looking at you, Ryan, because I can't turn my neck and my body the rest of the way. But where was the discussion for us to say definitively, yes, these were needed? We never had it. We collectively have never had it. And if you just use those two as an example and extrapolate that for $800 million, we kind of owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the community, and we owe it to the staff to really dive in and make sure that we confidently walk through rather than intuitively walk through how we're spending this money. It's a soapbox speech, no question embedded in that, other than to say, I really appreciate the work that you and all of the finance team have done. I will, despite these minor reservations, for the first time in a number of years, we'll be voting for this budget, so hats off to everybody. But I think going forward, we really kind of owe ourselves a deeper look or a more strategic look at these things rather than, and I did it last year too. I'm not pointing the finger at anybody because I sat on the phone last year and said, my God, please get me a street sweeper at one point. And the next thing you know, the next meeting, there's a street sweeper and a body attached to it. Like, I'm as guilty as anybody sitting here, and that's not how we should be putting our budget together. Should not be, oh my God, would somebody please? That should not be how we do this. So I guess I'm done with that. Thank you for the time. Thank you, council, for entertaining this rambling mess. I appreciate that.
Anything else? Yes, Councilmember Campbell.
Okay, Ryan, I've got a question since I was very surprised to see number 6 and number 7. And I agree with Bill. We really didn't discuss it. I had made a request for number 6 to Julie several times, but that's because I am so busy, and when I need John, he's busy with the other 5. I'm not going to say 6 because generally Bill's working, and he's not doing what I'm doing. But that being said, I'm not comfortable with that at all, with either one of them right now. Like Bill said, we really didn't vet it. And I really think we need to put the pencil to the paper and say why we need it and think it out. But also, where is the number 15 for the 4th deputy city manager? Where is he in this budget?
Thank you, Councilmember Campbell.
I couldn't find him.
The
Hold
deputy.
on, let the manager answer. Go ahead.
It's not in the budget because we took a current position and repurposed that position into the deputy city manager. So we did not add another position. We just took one and converted it to a deputy city manager.
And she's allowed to do that. We control the count. She controls where they go.
Well, then I have a question that I'll ask after the council that I don't want to particularly ask out in the public. Yeah, okay, so it's not in this budget. That's why I couldn't find it. Okay.
Yeah, the only thing, and again, I know with the 2 positions, I believe the manager reached out to the council on that, and I can tell you, from my perspective, the one additional council member, because remember, you have Vicki who's new, and we're going to have 2 new ones in the next election, where no matter how much experience they have, they're going to be having assistant issues because they're going to have to be brought up to speed. That was my kind of thought on that particular position. That not thinking now, but when the new ones come on board, I think you're going to need them. And that's just me. Others may or may not agree. I can tell you Jenna spends a lot of time with me as well as with Rosalva down at the legislature, sometimes till wee hours in the morning. I mean, I'm counting sheep while she's still down there at the state legislature, okay? So, and it seems to me that each year, and again, my little soapbox, each year we're gonna get more and more requirements to spend down there at the legislature. It seems like every year they're coming more and more with guns a-blazing at us, which requires more activity down there. So I'm just trying to think, not today, I'm thinking, tomorrow. And that's kind of my take on these pieces themselves, because I think she's gonna need help. Each year it gets worse down there at the state legislature. And I can tell you that. We'll be probably taking another shot at that $10 million. I'm hoping next year. We'll try a different strategy because this one didn't work. But that's kind of my 2 cents. And I know there was some feedback on that. And again, I appreciate Councilmember Stitt, what you're talking about on the meeting piece there. But that was just how I saw those 2 pieces. So with that, Ryan, you got something?
A quick follow-up too. No, I agree with Bill on the, I mean, it would be nice to have the two supplementals on the assistance to the council and the government relations position, but that's just that's just cognitive. I'm sure there's a process to follow. So I want to see the directors bring up the case why they need those positions, as opposed to us just, because I'm sure there's a maintenance public works person that probably needs 3 more people too, but we didn't bring that up because they don't interact with us. So I think letting the process go that direction, and then having the directors bring those to us and their needs assessment is probably the best way to go, as opposed to just us saying we need this or that, from which it might be a great idea, but I don't want to just create positions for people without having the research to back it up, because I want to give people a job for 20 years here. I don't want to lay anybody off because we just thought we needed somebody, but we didn't do the research for it. So
Go ahead, Sherry.
thank you.
Sorry. I don't really have any specific questions about those positions, but I do agree with Councilmember Stipp on, especially since we are going to have 2 new people, we might want to try it out next year rather than doing the small group meetings. Because especially when you have new people, you might want to look at doing more of the work sessions, because we don't know, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing when we're doing the small groups, although they're very great to have that intimate one-on-one setting. I think that might be a good way to vet these issues, and especially with 2 new people on board. So I think that's probably a good process that we might want to look into. I have a question. I know the mobile fire station assessment did come up, and I don't have a problem with it in the budget, but is that just going to be to fix the trailer, or is that going to be to how we can fix the situation? Not quite sure.
Here's the chief.
Because I don't know if the trailer's fixable. I haven't been down there for a while, but what I heard, it's not so good.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The assessment would look at the site, but also all of the logistics with the site as well. The other tricky part is eventually, if we choose to purchase a modular site building for that site, we need to figure out how we can move the crew or keep the crew active in one station while we're constructing a second station. We're also going to be looking at timing on when, or possibly when, a new permanent station would be built down there. So it is a pretty comprehensive look at the site, the infrastructure, and then kind of the future of that site as well.
Thank you. So it would be like a whole future, a comprehensive future of the mobile section.
Correct.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Councilmember Gillis?
Okay, so since I'm the new person on the panel, I'm going to say that I'm very happy that we are bringing somebody else on, that Wally recommended that. John works a lot with me, being new and starting in. If we have 2 or 3 people, yeah, we're going to need somebody else. So I am thankful that we are bringing somebody else on. Yes, I agree with Bill. We maybe need to talk about it more, but we absolutely need somebody. We also, with Jenna, she absolutely needs help down there. I know what she does down there. I know the things I've talked to her with. I know what she's done to help Joe and the mayor, and I know that she's overworked. I would not want her job, let's put it that way. So I think those are 2 positions that we really did need. If we got right down to it and we decided that's what we wanted to, I thank you for that, because it does make a difference. Have 1 person to deal with 6 council members is a lot. You know, it is a lot. And like I said, I appreciate what Jenna does down there and everything she's going through. I also want to say thank you very much to Wynette for listening, and Paul, obviously, for taking us down to Mobile. Since I'm the one that made a big issue out of it, I'm really glad we're doing something about it, because it was bad. And I thank you for listening and making it important. And Andy also, and making the people of Mobile important and putting them first instead of putting them like they were beneath us. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I like Councilmember Loretano's suggestion about more small groups. Sometimes when we're done with the work session and we're all thinking out loud and responding to things, I sometimes wonder how staff is able to interpret what we say to something actionable. So it's not a surprise that, based on the conversation, that we have these 3 supplementals. I did talk with city manager about it. I was initially resistant to it, but I think the idea that our city's growing, certainly as just so much growth around, so much going on, our ability to really get out in the community, it seems to be growing as well. And this is a good time to bring people on to get everybody up to speed so that, when the next election, they will have some level of experience. And, I think we're just going to be running from here on out. So I do support it.
Step.
I want to blame it on the anesthesia, but that was a week ago.
It stays in your body, it stays in your system for a while, Bill, don't worry about it.
So perhaps I wasn't clear. I wasn't objecting to the position, so I hope there wasn't a takeaway on that.
No.
I guess what I'm, and I guess I want to clarify, I did not hear Sherry say more small groups. More big group.
Okay,
We need to have more
Got it.
discussions as a whole rather than a lot of small groups, because what you have to say, I'll never hear if I'm meeting with Councilmember Loretano and Councilmember Gillis. I'll never hear what you guys think.
That's true.
And vice versa. And I think going forward with that, that perhaps brings some clarity in there. It also brings some education. I am very, and have been for the last several years, extremely active in what has been going on regionally. Jenna has been, I can't say my right hand, but definitely my left hand at all of the activities at Valley Metro and the things that we've been, the undertaking that we had there over the last 3 years or so. She was absolutely instrumental in that. But I did not require the assistance of John, for example, where the meetings that you attend, you do. So if we all have this in one group meeting, I understand everyone else's needs and you understand my needs, et cetera. And that was really that's the strategic discussion about it. If you ask me today, what does John do? I have no idea, because John doesn't support me in that way.
A lot.
Right. I don't know. And that's okay, because if John supported me the same way he supports you, the same way he supports Wally, John would be like an inch thick and, 10 feet tall, because he just would be stretched to, is beyond capacity. So I get all that. I was just kind of speaking collectively about, let's have these in greater discussions and greater piece forward. Because you're right, it should never be, and I've been the raving lunatic a couple of times, and then it's been others, it was Councilmember, Gillis with the, Mobile Fire Station, and it was, Councilmember Campbell with the assistant to we've all been that raving lunatic at some point in time or another, and it shouldn't be that. It should just be a deliberate discussion about what are our concerns with staffing, what are our concerns with things going forward, and then let's have that as a good discussion, because I'm sure as I sit across looking at everybody sitting in here, for all of the department directors, wouldn't you love to just be able to walk into your Tuesday morning leadership team meeting and go, I need a new, and then the manager go, okay, you got it. That's not how this is supposed to work. And that's all I'm trying to say, is we should not necessarily jump through the same sets of hoops that you guys have to, but we should at least jump through at least one or two. That's all I'm saying. So enough of this already. A great job, everybody.
Wally?
I agree with you, council member.
Get that on the record.
But, you're right. We never, as a council, we don't get together for anything. We get together for our meetings, we meet, and we leave. We get together for a work session, we meet, we leave. We have no opportunity to interact with one another or even talk to one another about issues of this city. And it is so critical that we understand where everybody's coming from. And I have preached this all 12 years I've been on this council. I've asked for us to be together more often, or either have a different agenda for our retreats so that some of this can be discussed and talked about. And we've not been able to accomplish that. I remember when we had, well, let's see, in 2011, when I came on council, I was unable to have a lot of help from the council assistant because he was busy helping a senior council member do a big deal with everybody in the city. Remember? That's all I'm gonna say. So I kind of had to do a lot on my own, which was okay. But when you don't know what you're doing, you just make mistakes, and you just, you really need that support. I've been a staff person for 21 years to the Speaker of the House. I know what you need to do, and I know what I need, and that's why I want it, which is probably selfish, but we can't even get out to the public, and we don't, it's really hard because of what we do. So that's all I'm gonna say. The only reason why I mentioned having someone else for John is because Sherry is right. We're getting 2 new ones in 2 years, and in 2 years we're getting 2 new. So you're gonna have 4 brand new council members that's gonna change the whole complexity of this council and this city. And we have got to have experienced staff in place that can right the ship, so to speak, or try to keep us on the right path. And I just think it is so critical. And it's so critical to have good staff that understands the mission, that understands what you're trying to do, and not have their own agenda. And that's all I'm gonna say.
All right, question. We have, I guess, 4 items with 1 presentation. Are you still have more to go?
A little bit more on this
Okay, keep
presentation,
going.
yes.
Thanks, Ryan.
Great job, great job.
So I will not take as much time on this because this is something that council has heard multiple times at this point. It's now that everything is set, that we've talked through the changes. With those changes, where does the money come from? Where does the money go? How is that made up? So as was shown on our first slide that we just talked through, $876.6 million are our resources, made up primarily of fund balance and operating revenue. The takeaway here is it's just similar percentages with bigger numbers. Last year, fund balance was 47%. This year it's 44%. Last year, operating revenue was 47%. This year it's 43%. If we look at that operating revenue and break that down, that 43%, it looks at like $490.2 million. You can see the impact that sales tax has for all of our funds at the city. That's construction and non-construction. Our enterprise funds, that's our water, wastewater, and sanitation, another big bucket of where we receive money from. Bond proceeds, those fluctuate year to year, made up of our brine disposal project, as well as our $40 million that we have reserved. Were our GO bond election to pass, we'd have the budget authority in the budget to be able to utilize some of those dollars where there's a need to do so. Getting a little bit smaller, looking just at the general fund, operating revenue, $200.6 million. Now you can really see the impact that sales tax has on our discretionary funds. The next biggest piece of the pie is state shared revenues. That's our proportionate share of state income tax, sales tax, vehicle license tax, and HER for our gas tax. So the highlights of our revenue, sales tax, conservative 3.3% increase versus our estimate. Construction sales tax, also conservative at 80% of our fiscal year 2023 estimate. $6.5 million for ongoing purposes. This is part of the next agenda item that you'll be approving here in a minute is our financial policies. The only change in those financial policies is the $6.5 million. State shared revenue, we talked about moving to one-time and development-related revenue. Still covers 100% of our costs. Looking at property tax, excuse me, primary property tax is set at the maximum levy per council policy. Secondary is set to cover GO debt service. Overall, our primary property tax levy increased year over year, $12.9 million to $13.9 million. Truth in taxation is scheduled for our next council meeting on June 12th, and we'll go into additional detail on taxes at that point in time. I want to make it a point to call out that in our tentative budget, there's no property tax rate increases, which means if a Goodyear resident is paying more in property taxes this year versus last year, it's likely due to their home appreciating in value, which being a Goodyear homeowner myself, I know that's not a bad thing. And at the bottom of the slide here, you can see in the box, $380.64. That is what the average Goodyear resident who owns a single-family home will pay in taxes to the city of Goodyear. Somebody might say that's not what I pay on my tax bill. And if we look on this next slide, that's because the majority of your property taxes actually go towards education. Goodyear actually takes a very small portion of those dollars that you pay in your taxes. These are last year's numbers, but I've looked at this year's. I think it shifts 1 percentage point either way, so this is exactly where your taxes are going that you pay in property. Looking at the expenditure side of things, the takeaway from here is very similar to what we said last year. This is a very capital-intensive budget. This was mentioned in our city manager's budget presentation, again, large part due to the carryovers of our projects from fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24. Looking at those dollars a different way by the different buckets, you can see where the CIP dollars go are likely where the spend is. Engineering, public safety, public works, general government makes up just all the departments that aren't listed out specifically. Looking at the general fund by use, personnel, you can see that's a big portion of the pie. Keep in mind this is both one-time and ongoing expenditures. Were we to take out one-time expenditures, you would see personnel make up a much larger piece, showing that people are what really makes up how the city runs. Breaking it down, same number, $339 million, where the money is going, general fund, engineering, public safety, two big pieces where our CIP is and where a lot of our focus has been on public safety. And this is actually a really good one right here, showing how much emphasis we do put and have put on public safety in the past. So said differently, for every dollar that we spend in discretionary ongoing funds, 50 cents of that goes towards public safety here at the city. Looking at our total FTE counts, at our city manager's recommended budget, it was 40.99. With the two FTEs that we just discussed, it's 42.99. Compared that to last year where we added 67 FTEs. And that brings us to 947.18 FTEs for this fiscal year 24 budget. Looking at our capital improvement plan, our 5-year capital improvement plan is coming in at $689.9 million. Last year it was $627.5, so that's an increase of about $62 million year over year. In 2024, the big gray area there, that has to do with those transportation projects that we were talking about are carried over. If you look at the gray area in 2025, a lot of that has to do with our Estrella Bridge project. And then in 2027, the blue area has to do with our Goodyear Water Reclamation Facility 3NGD expansion. This is just some of the projects looking just at fiscal year 2024, our CIP. These are not the dollars that are programmed in that year, but more so the projects that have dollars with them. So these are the total projects costs related to the projects that you're seeing there and their estimated completion dates. So with that being said, before you is Resolution 2023-2309, which adopts the fiscal year 2024 expenditure limitation budget at $806,949,000, excuse me, and sets the dates of public hearings both on the final budget as well as truth and taxation. Tonight, you're being asked to adopt this resolution authorizing us to complete all required publications. On June 12th, we'll have our public hearings and at a special meeting have the adoption of the budget. And a few weeks after that, on June 26th, we'll come back for the for the property tax adoption, property levy adoption, excuse me. I'm just at the end, I promise. All that being said, for this presentation, I am done, but you will be taking action on additional agenda items at the same time after this. They are our fiscal year 24 financial policies. Again, the only changes to that is our ongoing construction sales tax from 6.1 million to 6.5, which was discussed at our council retreat. And the other one thing you'll be doing is authorizing our routine expenditures in excess of $500,000 for fiscal year 2024. So with that, are there any additional questions?
Any questions?
Not really a question. Please bring a loudspeaker when you talk next meeting about the property tax deal. that is such an important thing to make sure we're getting communicated. So if you're a reporter listening to this tonight, please get in touch with Ryan so he can explain this to you before next week. I appreciate the breakdown that you did this year. Usually we leave it at $100,000 and you have to do your own math. But to show the average homeowner what their property rate is, super important. And I know we had an article in one of the publications last week that referenced the bond discussion that we had, or the council had last week at the work session that talked about a tax increase, which clearly is not the intent. It's not, our intent is to maintain the $1.74. So it's really important for us to message this correctly. You did a great job, but let's bring it in like 15 or 25 font or something. Thanks.
Anything else? Can you go back to slide 21? I think it's 21. One more, back. Okay. I think this slide is real important, and here's the reason why. As we are working down to state legislature and some future things that are going on, especially trying to preempt us on the rental tax, which I think is really important. And I try to explain to the governor and the governor's staff is when you look at this 50.3%, everybody says, well, it can't affect your first responders and public safety. And I say, it's a simple math issue. If half of your money is going to general fund operations, whether it's new or current, if you cut X amount of dollars or $200 million or whatever that number happens to be for the 70-some cities that have it, how can it not affect it? Okay? I mean, it's that simple. I tried to explain it to Carrie Lake. She didn't quite get it. But this is what you have here. This is a very large percent that goes to first responders and public safety. And that's why it's so important. I know, Jenna, we're hoping to get a phone call in down there. But that's why it's so important to explain this. If they're going to do anything, they need to make us whole. And I'm trying my best to make sure that happens. It won't be for lack of effort. I'll put it to you that way, that we're doing down there. So with that, are there anything else? Because I'm going to be going through a whole bunch of resolutions right now because it's all tied to his one presentation. Everybody okay?
Okay.
All right, with that, City Clerk, please read resolution number 2023-2309 by title only.
Adopt resolution number 2023-2309, adopting the fiscal year 2023-2024 estimates of revenues and expenses for the city of Goodyear, including estimated property tax levy and property tax rates as the tentative budget for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2023 and ending June 30th, 2024, setting forth the receipts and the amounts estimated as collectible for the previous fiscal year, the amount proposed to be raised by direct property taxation for the various purposes, giving notice of the time for hearing taxpayers for adoption of budget and setting the tax levies.
Thank you. Will the City Council please enter a motion and a second to adopt resolution 2023-2309? I got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Go ahead and open the voting. Passes 7-0. The next item is 2024 financial policies. You've already done the presentation. Any speaker cards? No?
No, Mayor.
Okay. City Council, please enter a motion and a second to adopt fiscal year 2024 financial policies. I see a motion and a second. Open discussion. No further discussion. Open voting. Passes 7-0. Next item on business is consider the authorization spending over $500,000. This was included in the presentation. City Clerk, please, will the council please enter a motion, a second, to authorize fiscal year 2024 listed expenditure in excess of $500,000. I got a motion and a second. Open council discussion. Seeing none, open voting. Passes 7-0. Last item. Consider the adoption changes to the user fees. Come on, bring it on up.
The council. My name is Jared Askelson, the Deputy Finance Director, here with the final item in the finance parade for tonight, the adoption of the user fees for next fiscal year. We do this operation every year. We re-adopt our user fees, and we have two modifications this year. One has to do with the preliminary plat process that the council modified on April 10th to eliminate the P&Z Commission and City Council approval steps. That reduces the time necessary for preliminary plats, also reduces the cost, and now we can reduce the fees to go along with that. The second area is in the dry utility boring inspection fee. The original cost model for that fee anticipated projects less than 1 mile in length. We have updated that model to include projects greater than 1 mile and now have a separate fee for that. So those are the modifications that you're seeing. And with that, I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Anybody in the audience like to speak?
I have a card from Mr. Pizzorno.
Okay, come on up.
Of my name, I'm almost used to the mispronunciations.
Impressive, huh?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Robert Pizzorno. I'm with Lumen Technologies. We are one of the users that will be impacted by this fee, and I just wanted to rise and say how much we want to thank staff for their efforts on this and your consideration of this. By passing this measure, this will allow us to come into your city and build. We had reached a position of no build because of the costs up to this point. We were trying to articulate those points to staff, and to staff's credit, they not only heard our complaints, but and I know we're not the only fiber provider who came forward with those complaints, but I don't want to speak for the entire industry, but we all say thank you. So we just want to say thank you. I know this is your last item, and with that I will close out and sit down unless there's any questions. I'm happy to answer if you have any.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see what we have here. Let's see, anybody in the audience? Will the clerk please read the resolution 2023-2307 by title only?
Adopt resolution number 2023-2307, approving and adopting a document entitled the Goodyear Municipal User Fee Schedule, replacing and superseding the municipal user fee schedule adopted by resolution number 2022-2274 as amended, providing for an effective date.
Council, please enter a motion to adopt resolution 2023-2307. Got a motion and a second. Open for discussion. Seeing none, listen, I appreciate you coming up and thanking staff. You know, they don't probably get as much as they should, but again, thank you very much, and I'm glad we've been of some service for you. With that, go ahead and open the voting. Passes 7-0. Does council have any comments or commendations or reports or current events or requests for future items? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is just for the city manager. I already brought it up to her, but just want to publicly say I had some residents who are concerned about, who live in Palm Valley Phase 5, with just some of the traffic, with I think it's the symptom of the construction that's just going around there. There's a lot of people driving, truck traffic, normal traffic, just driving through that main road, I think 152nd. And they're mostly concerned with the students that are going to the schools with the increased amount of volume of traffic, and just looking for some relief into some solution. I'm not sure what the solution is going to be, but just a way to mitigate or just help them ease some of that burden off, especially the kids moving throughout the neighborhood there. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? No? City manager?
Yes, I have a couple updates. Goodyear Night Market was on Saturday, May 22nd from 5 to 9 here out in Civic Square. Over 3,000 people attended that event, so it was a very popular event. And then we had a lot of activity at the Goodyear Ballpark over the weekend. We had Buckeye Union High School graduation was on Wednesday, Yonker High School graduation Thursday, and Australia Foothills High School graduation on Friday, for a total of 1,180 total graduates from our high schools and more than 15,000 guests in attendance. Thankfully, the thunderstorms did not cause any delays or interruptions. And then we also had the barbecue and balloons. An estimated crowd of 800 were in attendance. 17 retail and 13 food vendors were on site. 6 barbecue teams competed in the competition, and 2 balloons participated in the evening glow.
Well, thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
No, just for a point of pride, my granddaughter sang at the Millennium graduation, the Star Spangled. So, yeah, we're the group. There's 3 others up there. There's 4 of them total. So, yeah. So just being a proud grandfather. With that, next meeting will be June 5th at 5 PM. No further business. This meeting's over.